Wait,
And
where's
what-
our countdown?
Oh, what? I feel robbed. Robbed, I tell you. I think I actually turned the countdown off when I was filming my workshop in here the other day. Dang it. I gotta remember. Gotta remember to fix that. Let me make myself a note. Fix the countdown. Jeez Louise. Hey, Abby, how are you today?
Hey, what's up, my friends?
You know, getting ready to have a phenomenal conversation about understanding the arc of our story.
It's Monday, and I haven't talked to you all weekend. So when you say just getting, I wanted to jump in and say, did you with it?
100%.
I dial myself back.
Look, you don't know what's going on below this desk. You don't know if I'm jiggy footed or not. You just don't know. No. What's up, everybody in the chat? David, you get the medal today for being the first in the chat.
Commenter.
I feel like we need a baton or of some sort where we hand, you know,
or a
the weekly prize.
tattoo. David should get a tattoo for it.
I love that so
He's
much.
got one. Done.
Yeah. Hello, Elsie Jane. Hello, Rob.
Angel.
Yeah, I can't read
Blair.
it's on my monitor.
Erica.
That's just past arm's length. And
put your glasses on, old man.
Well,
you know. Doing?
Oh, let me see. Yeah. Put your glasses on, Papa. Yeah. So we had a bit of a long weekend. We had a holiday on Friday, and coming back after an extended weekend, it's and Abby and I have been talking about some amazing things that we have for you guys coming up the rest of this summer into fall. I think, Abby, is it safe to say that you and I have events and ways for people to not only connect with each other, but to take their book idea that's living in their brain and bring that to fruition? And we have so much that
I think it's safe to say we have more ideas than we have time, Hank.
But that's always the truth. That's always the truth. But like we have so many right at hand. And you know, if you guys have enjoyed the shorter challenges we have and some of the longer challenges, you know, like the 60-day challenge and things like that, you are going to absolutely be excited for what Abby and I are dreaming up for you guys. And not only that, but some of this, some of it on purpose and some of it just because you are fortuitous, happen to line up with the Dabble 3.0 launch. Whew. We're so close, guys. We're so close. I'll tell you this, over the weekend, because we were supposed to go spend a couple of days on the beach, and we decided to have monsoon season here in the deep South. And so we didn't leave the house. I mean, I went across the road to Aldi a couple of times.
That doesn't count.
But I started working on a brand new novel series. It's initially going to be a trilogy, and I started working in Dabble 3 and, you know, with some of the new tools and stuff, and
I know
it's gonna be so good.
I can't go back now.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so wild. So
I can't go back. I think they turned off my account. So maybe that's why. I'm just kidding.
They're like, Abby, we're going to need you to exit 2.5 and
get your butt out of here.
Yeah, get out.
You know, I want to ask you this, Hank. Okay, because you and I think, are at this point, people should know we're kind of reformed pantsers, but we tend to lean more towards pantsing than to plotting. But I know I am currently about halfway through drafting a YA rom-com.
Yeah.
You are starting to draft a new fantasy novel, new genres for both of
Yep.
us,
Yep.
by the way. I plotted this book. I plotted the hell out of it. I'm not going to lie. And I think this might be safe to say the first time I've plotted and been like, okay, these people are onto something.
I have to agree with you, Abby. As bad, okay, and I'll qualify this statement because this is the book that I'm writing, the series that I'm writing is epic fantasy. Okay, so a genre that I've been a fan of forever, but I've never felt like I could write an epic fantasy. And part of it was that I didn't feel like that I had a good enough premise that although would live in that genre was different enough that I felt like I could put my mark on and that I could tell in a way. And uh and also we've talked about this so many times that on the spectrum between pantsers and plotters, I'm more to the left. I'm left of center toward the pantser than I am plotter.
Same.
Although I do like to have a map of sorts that I'm working. I don't just blindly sit down and write a book. I'm not, I'm not that much of a, whatever. I almost said something that I was immediately going to regret, so I pulled that back. But I think one thing that has kind of kept me in that space is that I tend to write a certain type of book that's very much rooted in the real world, even though with fantastical elements. I love fantastical elements, but still rooted. It would be urban fantasy if you could call the part of the country I write in urban, but it's not. So country
Are you
fantasy,
rural fantasy?
rural fantasy.
You heard it here, folks. It's the biggest subgenre that's going to hit Amazon.
That's right.
Rural fantasy.
Yeah.
Hey, I wrote rural fantasy, so let's be pioneers.
Right. Let's be pioneers together. We'll who was Lewis and Clark? That's us. We're the Lewis and Clark of the literary world. Yes. But when I started envisioning epic fantasy, which included all sorts of, I had to build the world from the ground up, even though I used elements of our world, but disguised it. It required more note taking, more thinking through things ahead of time, which naturally required more plotting, more world building. I typically write in places that the world doesn't need to be built because it's the real world. It just needs to be
you can rely on readers being able to fill it in themselves because it's recognizable.
Exactly. So stretching myself made me have to lean on those plotter tools that I've learned, obviously, but I just don't like to use. But now they fit. It's like we talk about your writer toolkit. You have all these tools. You don't always need a screwdriver. Sometimes you need a blunt hammer.
For the most part, I feel like
but you have all of the tools in your toolbox for that reason.
So same but different.
Yeah.
In that this one for me, rom-com, readers have so many expectations that they want you to meet as a romance writer. And if you do not meet them, you are seriously upsetting your readership. And I wanted to make sure I was hitting all the beats that a romance reader would expect. That's why I turned to plotting this time, was because I'm sort of lucky enough. So I ended up with this Romancing the Beat, Gwen Hayes. I feel like I just pulling it out. Great book, terrific book. I in the past, though, have never liked the filling in a bucket sort of template. I always felt constricted. But
Same.
here's the thing, I think it was less that I felt constricted and more that I didn't understand the rhythm and the structure of story to
Yep.
be able to look at the bucket and be like, yeah, I know what piece is going to go in there. I still felt like I was learning what all the pieces were. And I had to live it a couple of times, or 8 or 9, because that's
But
how many books I had to write.
you've literally told us that as an art major that you guys learned that the more constraints you put on a thing, the more creative you will be.
Yep.
But I'm like you. I've always fought against, like, I don't want you to tell me what thing I need in this beat. And the I I've never outlined a book using Save the Cat.
Yeah.
I understand the process. I understand, but I've always been like, it's a little too formulaic for me. I'll just go with my gut. And I 100% use Save the Cat. I used every
Did
one of the Save
you?
the Cat beats. Yes, every
And
one.
I think
And it
Save the
kind of
Cat
worked.
is close to the hero's journey. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys, here's the thing about these templates, and this
Yep.
is what I've had to sort of understand. And again, I had to live it before I could truly understand it. But they're just taking millennia of storytelling, right? And they're
Yep.
figuring out, someone super smart just sort of figured out, oh, all of these really super famous stories, they're hitting all the same beats. Let's just put a name to it. Save the
Yep.
Cat, Hero's Journey, they give them kind of different names, some of the beats. Some of these formulas have more beats than other beats, but it was Christopher Vogel was the one who said to me, doesn't matter which one of them you're using, they're all telling you to do pretty much the same thing.
Yep.
And you can just be creative within those bounds.
So I just created a poll and just posted there. I need you guys to tell me, are you a plotter? Are you a pantser, or do you live somewhere in the middle? Because we're going to talk about that in next week's workshop. And so just let me know where you live. I think Abby and I both have said we live in the middle somewhere, although on this project that I'm undertaking, I am like hard right plotter, which is
I feel
kind
like
of
that.
kind of scary territory for me.
I almost feel like you need to take this and instead of having 3 choices, it needs to be a spectrum from 1 to 5 and 3 in the middle. But then you have a 4 and you have a 5, which is like hardcore plotter. And I think you and I are both moving into the 4 category.
I think so. And I heard, I listened to several lectures over the weekend just on YouTube while I was working. And one was Brandon Sanderson. It wasn't a lecture. It was like at some convention, and he did like a reading and a Q&A kind of thing. And he talked about the fact that he's a very meticulous planner, plot planner, but he said he never plots his characters. He always lets them, and by doing that, sometimes a character will take a decision that he was not prepared for, and sometimes that will affect his outline. He'll have to go through and adjust his outline. And he said that helps him to maintain that sort of tension where he technically knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't always know how this character is going to respond to that, the situation he puts him in. And sometimes it goes exactly as planned, and sometimes something exciting happens.
So is that kind of what you did? Because I've never heard him say that, but that's exactly what I did this time. I just had a basic general idea of who each of the people were going to be. And then as I told the story, I let those characters be defined by what I needed them to be to tell the story I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
look at me being Brandon.
I kind of understood my character's motivations. My main protagonist, he has a solid motivation. And then I've got an antagonist who also has a solid motivation. And then I've got a cast of supporting characters, and I understand their motivations. but I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I know the shape of the story that I've laid out, but they could behave differently in the midst of it. I don't know exactly until I start the drafting in earnest, but man, I'm
Mhm.
chomping at the bit to start writing the story.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've not been this excited well, I've not been this excited to work on the bones of the story ahead of time. And and
Yes.
and I've always heard people talk about when they plot too much, that they plot the life out of the story. They're like, "Oh, that story's been told already. I don't want," but
Yeah, they
no,
feel like they've already finished it.
exactly, but it's the
Yeah.
exact opposite with me.
I
It
know.
makes me more and more excited to this.
This story has come faster than any other story I have ever written. And I was nervous because it's the first time I've written for, I'm going to say, an adult audience. I've written a book that is meant to be on the longer side. So, I mean, for most people out there, 65, 70,000 words, sweet spot for YA romance is still a low word count for you. But I'm used to coming in hot at 37,000 words, people.
Yeah,
Right. So, this is like double what I would normally have written. And it's coming faster. And I think part of that is because I know exactly what it is I'm supposed to write every day when I sit down. But within that exactness, there is enough room to play that I still feel like I have something to discover as I
right.
write forward. And I am not going to lie. And I feel like some of those in the audience, and I could name names, but they are going to laugh
And
at
he
me when I
will.
say this. I will. Don't tempt me. But you know what stalled me?
What?
And it's at the 50% mark. The kiss. I've never had to write a kiss before because I write for middle grade.
Oh,
And
smoochy
like I've
coochie.
always been like, I don't have to worry about that romance stuff. Ew, I write for kids. But now you're writing a rom-com, you have to write the kiss. And I'm like, and all I can think about is these characters are the same age as my kids. And I'm like, that's what's giving me pause.
You're like, how awkward is this gonna be? Uh, so I have a question. When you're writing a rom-com, um, how
Heavy on the
it
rom in my
well,
particular.
that's what I was gonna ask. Like how
Or
weighted differently is it rom versus com?
I said
And it
heavily on the rom, heavily on the calm. Mine
that's
is heavily
exactly
on the
what I
calm.
expected from
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like for me, I would write how awkward things were and I would crack a
Mhm.
joke. And that's how I
That's
would
what it
get
is.
out of that situation. Yeah, I would.
So, writing the kiss scene today,
Yeah.
like their neighbors,
Yeah.
right? So girl next door is kind of boy next door. It's kind of a trope, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's next door, he's in his garage, he's working on an old vintage amp, right? So I like
Yeah.
totally gave him this really cool hobby that I know nothing about. And I'm really proud of myself that I haven't gone down some super rabbit research hole. I'm like, Abby, get in, get the info you need, and get the heck out. So that's what I've been doing.
Wait,
But
like
he's
guitar amp?
guitar amp.
Okay.
He's Frankensteining a vintage amp.
Okay, you know I was an engineer at a musical instrument company for years, and
Okay.
yeah, I worked on the project when Eddie Van Halen made his custom guitars and amps. We can talk about it later if you need to pick my brain. Go ahead.
Well, I was just
Mm.
about to say, do you know anything about a 1484 twin 12 Silvertone amp from Steers that was made between the 1950s and the 1960s? Because if you do, I have some questions for you. By the way,
100%.
Jack White and Dave Grohl used the same one. That's why I picked it.
And it's what makes most of those like early Kinks albums sound the way they do.
Was
And
that
to get the
the amp?
distortion, they took razor blades and cut the speakers.
Oh, see all these tidbits? Okay, see, now I'm going down the rabbit hole, Hank, when I was like, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But
Silvertone amps and Vox amps.
yeah, Vox was also on my list when I started to research. Anyway, I have him in the garage. She's going over to talk to him. She has cookies because he's been giving her a ride home from school. She had grandma bake the cookies. She lives with grandma next door, right? And I knew I had to write the kiss in this scene, but I was so awkward about writing it that I literally made her trip and stumble and drop the cookies in the driveway because I myself was tripping and stumbling over having to write this scene.
Hilarious.
I was like, but I'll put on my big girl panties and get over it and write the scene, and it'll probably be real cringy, and I'll have to go back and rewrite it. That's totally fine.
Okay. We need to clear something up right now before we move ahead.
No, we have not been.
No.
First of all, Hank, what did I say to Doug not 10 minutes before we got on this call was, you were dead to me.
Literally in front of the entire marketing department.
We are not corrupted.
We are not the same.
If anything, we corrupt him. I bet we're going to get him to dial back on his plotting.
I'm before it's over, I'm going to have him pants an entire short story anthology.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. The Doug Pants Challenge. I mean, that sounds terrible. Maybe we could rename it something else. We'll workshop that name later.
Yeah, we just do not need to put his name with Libby Hawker's book. We just don't. Those two do not need to.
For those of you wondering what we're talking about, this is what we're talking about. Doug, don't take off your pants. So
yes, put on more clothes, Doug.
More pants. If anything, put on more pants, everyone.
Coveralls. Wear coveralls. Anyway.
Yeah. So, here's something that you and I are sort of learning this in real time, right? Yeah. But I think there are a lot of people out there. Notice no one in our survey has chosen plotter, right? Most people feel like they're kind of in the middle. Right. I think we've got one or two pantsers in the group. Absolutely nothing wrong with pantsing. As you and I will tell you, we've written our fair share of books that way. You just have more work and revision. I mean, I think that it comes down to it. You really do have more work and revision. And what I'm praying for is that I have less work and revision now, because revision kind of screws me up.
Yeah. Well, to that point about no one considers themselves and I'm using the left to right line of on the far left is plotter, on the far right is pants. I just picked those at random. They don't mean anything other than that. Stop it. But the person that I know is the farthest left, and I mean plotter, not political leanings. So
yeah, I had it flip-flopped in my head. I was thinking
whichever. The person that I find that is the farthest in the plotter camp is my friend Josh Hayes. He's been on the show a number of times. We know Josh. We love Josh. He is what I would call one of the most intense plotters I've ever met. And yet he still, when we were having these discussions years ago, he said, but I pants the outline. So he said, when I'm outlining, I'm just riffing and just dreaming stuff. So even though he is the most intense plotter I know, he still would not put himself on the far end of the spectrum, because he says that somewhere in his process, he's still just dreaming stuff up. So
well, aren't we all?
We are. I mean, we're literally creating ex nihilo out of nothing.
And
yeah. So anyway,
I think part of what holds people up when they even think about plotting, and I found it the other day because it got crammed in the back of my drawer and then I couldn't get my drawer all the way open.
Yeah.
This is when I first started writing a book almost 10 years ago. This was my first attempt at a plot. Have I ever shown you this? Hank?
No, I don't think so.
This is what I thought plotting was. I had no idea what I was doing, by the way.
Wow.
I was literally taping pages together. This was the outline for my very first book, which, surprise, did not get written. This is what it looked like.
Okay.
It says Act 1, Act 2, Act 2.2. I don't know what Act 2.2 is.
I'm going to say, if your children are ever threatening to put you in a home, okay, just, many years from now, hide that from them. You don't need to hand them anything.
It looks like a writer's murder board, doesn't it?
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but didn't want to say. But you said it first.
Do you know
that meme with the guy?
I'm just now having this thought. I almost want to frame this though and hang it up. I know you say hide it. I almost want to frame it to hang it up to remind myself how far I've come.
Oh, because yes, 100%. You should frame that. I was totally joking. You should frame that, Abby. That's amazing.
You were joking.
It's amazing. I'll
put it where my rhinos are. But what a great reminder. But now, thank God I found the plot grid. I'm just going to say that. And the plot grid in 3.0. Oh, I know we should stop teasing them.
Okay.
But
okay.
Is that kind of maybe what made you feel like you could do this?
Yes, a little bit. And I'm not the world's best plot grid user. I've always said that I use the plot grid wrong. And I say that, but there's no wrong way to use it. You use it as a tool that helps your process. I say that jokingly, but I always use my plot grid in the middle. Like after I first draft, I use it to kind of sort out what I've written and to compare with my original thoughts and, to kind of see the shape of the story. It just helps me to wrap my head around it. But this time I'm building out my plot grid and so excited.
Okay, but let me say this.
The plot grid is so much easier to use in 3.0 and so much more powerful.
But Hank, here's the weird thing. I only have one column in mine.
Yeah.
Do you have more than one? I only have one column, you guys. One. That's all I need.
For the first time, I'm going to have multiple columns.
You're going to have multiple columns?
Yes. It's crazy. I know.
I almost feel like at some point we just need to do a video where we build it from scratch, because I think if you're afraid of outlining, one, you're probably overcomplicating it, like me with my 7 million legal pads taped together.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what the heck that was, but it was overly complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very easy. And the point of it for me was I knew from the beginning I was hitting the beats my readers expected me to hit, so that I did not have to tear up a draft that I loved in revision in order to squeeze those things in. I wanted to be able to think about that from the get-go, so I didn't have to do it later. And I think that's why I love what Josh said about he just pantsed the outline, because I felt like there was a good amount of pantsing that was going on. I wasn't filling out a million buckets. I wasn't thinking too analytically about it, but I was going from beat to beat to beat to beat and making sure I had it all. I had enough to work with to know I was going to be able to satisfy what my genre readers were looking for. You are also writing in a genre, and I would consider fantasy to be another one, where the readers are expecting certain things. Mystery, same thing. Your readers pick up that book, they're expecting certain things. Historical fiction, same thing. They're expecting certain things. And, this is actually one of the things that Brooke and I started with on First Novel Problems. And that was genre, because she had a story idea, but that story idea could be told a dozen different ways.
Right.
And the story would look different each time because of the genre that you could write it in. And so I walked her through choosing a genre that felt comfortable to her and that wasn't going to fight against her natural tendencies
Right.
or the story that she wanted to tell. And so, I don't know. How did you come to writing epic fantasy? Because I came to rom-com when I realized, you know what I pick up to read 9 times out of 10? If it's not a middle grade book, it's a rom-com 9 times out of 10.
Right. Well, I have loved epic fantasy my whole life. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of originally came into it through comic books when I was a little
Okay.
kid, like Superman and stuff, which is
Yeah.
just a fantasy story.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I read The Hobbit, and and then I realized that there were other stories like this, out there, and I just kind of, you know, nerded out. And
Mhm.
so fantasy and sci-fi and I had a bunch of boxes of books that my aunt, my mom's younger sister, gave me, where she had like a bunch of golden age sci-fi and a bunch of Agatha Christie novels, stuff like that she
Mm.
gave me. And so I started reading like Asimov um and some of these great, kind of the hopeful sci-fi of like
Yeah.
the 60s and 70s, before everything turned, to the world is horrible, kind of sci-fi. And
Yeah.
and so, those are kind of the stories that formed how I think about stories, and I've always loved them, but I've never thought that I had a premise that I could start from. And I'll give you a little clue into what broke it open for me is that I had been doing a lot of reading on some like esoteric, not necessarily esoteric, but some apocryphal, um, some of the extra biblical
Mhm.
stories from like the Old Testament, like the Book of
I
Enoch.
wondered if that's where you were going.
The Book of
Yeah.
Enoch specifically about telling about how angels came down and mated with human women and created these giants and the things that became the demigods that kind of throughout all of the so I've always thought that was like a really provocative idea because like I'm not clued in enough like to understand like pagan um uh
Is The Rock gonna star in your screen
oh,
adaptation
he
as
might.
a demigod?
He might. I'm not
Please
ruling
tell me
anything out.
that's who you are picturing in your head as
Right.
these demigods.
So that kind of opened a door for me to kind of understand the
Mhm.
demigods and the, like, pantheon of gods because I've
Yeah.
never really been able to wrap my head around that, so that kind of opened a door for me. Okay, so I could see a way into that. Okay,
Yeah.
got that. And then we live in an area of the country where there's a huge Indian reservation, and they call themselves Indians, not Native Americans.
Mhm.
That's a point of contention, but I'm just telling you what they call themselves. It's an Indian reservation just like 30 miles from my house. And they have some very interesting legends. And we have a bunch of burial mounds here. And where one legend is that they say the first Indians, the first Choctaw Indians specifically, came out
Choctaw.
of they came out of this one particular mound that's only about 30 miles from my house. Like I've been to it many, many times. But they say the first uh person of their tribe came out of that mound and came from a star that was like a portal from a star there. And I've always thought that was such a provocative thing.
Yeah.
I love that idea, and there had to be something you do with it. And then I was thinking, well, what? And the Book of Enoch says that there's a particular mountain called Mount Hermon where these angels came down, and then that's where they touched down, and then they created the demigods. And I was like, well, what if they came down on this mound, this particular one? It's called Nanawaya, and what if they came down there? And then instead of this being like ancient Israel where it happens, what if it's the ancient
Here.
southern United States? And then, an hour and a half to our west is the Mississippi River. And what if the river was a barrier between this land where the gods came down and another civilization on the other side of the river where they didn't believe in those? And so you've got this natural tension with the borderlands. And when
This
I
is
kind of
like
when I put those two concepts together, it just
This
erupted
is
in my brain.
literally the most Hank thing I have ever heard in
Thank
my
you.
life.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, when I found how those two could work together, oh, it was game over. It was yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
can see why you're super jazzed about that now.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
it's gonna be a
yeah,
lot of fun.
absolutely jazzed. I'm jazzed for you.
Thank you. And the first
Yeah.
book's gonna be called Where the Gods Came Down.
Oh, nice. See, and
Mhm.
you always know how to start with the title. And I'm just, I ended
Not
up,
always, but sometimes it
it's
just
there.
tells you what it is, you know.
It just
So
sits in your heart.
yeah.
So,
So, we'll shift gears just a little bit, but there's a lot of talk in the writing community about the murky middle, that the
mhm.
the part, and my video has just locked up.
It's frozen, but
So
I can hear you.
okay.
So,
So
yeah.
the murky middle, the place where the story slows down, the forward momentum
Where
gets
the kiss
lost
happens.
where the kiss
Where the
happen.
kiss happens.
Have you ever experienced that where you're chugging full speed, the story's just unfolding, and then you get to the part where the story is fully established, the end is still far off. You can see the end, you know how things will wrap up and the things that all have to coalesce to land
Mhm.
a a satisfactory story. But that middle piece between the thing that you've been building and the thing you're building toward, how do you navigate that murky
Can
middle?
I tell you, so when I was writing
Absolutely.
my very first book,
Okay.
and my book coach was Jenny Nash from Author
Yeah.
Accelerator, right? And so she and I had made this beautiful inside outline, which I then proceeded to ignore. We've also discussed this before, how sometimes you make an outline and you feel like you understand enough about the story that you don't need to look at it. You kind of have it and hold it in your head. That's exactly what I was doing as I wrote. So I essentially wrote my way to the murky middle and then got stuck in the quagmire because I
Mm,
had sort of veered off path at some point, kind of slightly. And I'm just going to keep talking, you guys. Hank will be back. So I had sort of veered off the course of the outline as I had written it. And I wasn't really sure what to do next. So I knew where I was headed ultimately at the end, but I kind of ended up with this weird detour, right? So it just happened to coincide with Jenny being asked to go on Creative Live. So back when Creative Live was a thing, I think they have recently actually shut the website down, but it was this amazing website where if you caught a workshop live in their studio, they would stream it over the internet. And if you caught it live, you got to watch for free. If you wanted the replay, you had to buy their pass. And so Jenny was flying out to, I think it was Seattle, to record this workshop live for Creative Live about writing a query letter. And she said to me, "Hey, I know you're in the middle of writing your first draft, and querying is the last place that you're probably thinking about right now, but you're one of the only people I know who will get on stage and like make a bunch of mistakes so that everyone can benefit. Do you mind coming with me to Creative Live and being on stage, and we can dissect a query letter in front of a live studio audience?" And like a dummy, I was like, "Yeah, of course I'll do that thing." So I had to stop when I was right in the middle of my draft and I wrote my query letter. So, one of the things that a query letter has, if you're not familiar, this is a terrible book to pick up and show. Let me do this one. So, a query letter includes the jacket copy that's on the back. I have just continued my story because I
thank
know
you.
you have heard it
Thank you.
about
Yeah,
Creative Live.
yes, my computer crashed. I had to reboot.
Well, I was just in the middle of saying I was going on Creative Live as I was stuck in the murky middle. Jenny had me write my query letter, and a query letter involves the jacket copy from the back of your book, right?
Okay.
Jacket copy from the back of your book, no spoilers, right? You don't tell the ending, But basically, you have to hook everybody and you have to tell them what the promise of your premise actually is.
Right.
And when I stopped and I wrote that jacket copy, it was exactly what I needed to remember what I was doing in the first place, since I had like quasi pantsed it. I'm going to say quasi pants because, again, I wrote the outline and then proceeded to ignore it. And I needed that reminder midway through. And so I think that murky middle is the perfect place to sometimes, if you stop and you look at what you've already written, and so maybe reverse outline that. And by reverse outline, Hank, we should probably explain what we mean, which is you go back and you sum up each chapter, what
Right.
you have written thus far, so that you can see it on 2 pages.
Yeah, which is
Right?
basically what I do with the plot grid. I just didn't have
Yep.
a name for it until you say, "Oh, that's just a reverse outline." I was like,
It's a reverse
"Oh
outline.
yeah, yeah, that's totally what I was doing." Yeah.
Yeah. So you just write out what you've written so far. And then if you want to, you can use that to say, okay, here's what I've got. What needs to happen next? And you can pick up from there, because I think, and to your point where you said Josh Hayes says he doesn't plot the characters and he lets the characters lead him in a certain direction. And sometimes he has to go back and re-outline.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is outlines are living documents. They're
Right.
not made. And I think that's part of what scares people about outlining. That's part of what scared me, is I felt like if I wrote it down in my outline and then I decided somewhere along the way that wasn't what I wanted to happen, I felt like I had no choice but to make that happen. Like the outline was some be all end all final word, when
Right.
that's not the case. And
Right.
that's, you can change it, you can adjust it, and then use it as your guide to move on.
Right. So I
So,
put a poll question up and it chopped it off because it wouldn't let me put enough letters there. But
mm,
hot take, every book that works uses the same skeleton underneath, whether the writer
mm,
realized it or not. So just I would just love to hear you guys' opinion. Does every and where this comes from is we think, I'm going to tell a brand new story. I'm going to tell it in a way that's never been told before. And so you find some, out of order, disjointed way to tell the story that you think is going to be so cutting edge and unique. And does it work? Does it not? So I'm just curious, what do you guys think? Like every and I don't mean like follows Save the Cat or
right.
follows the snowflake method or the hero's journey, because all of those are really different ways of describing a story structure, and some of the minutia, the sub parts of it are kind of break down a little more uh, differently so that it executes a little differently, but ultimately that the grand overarching story structure is kind of the same. Do you guys
Kind
agree
of
or not?
like, so let me see if I'm following where you're going
Okay.
with this. If I'm smelling what you're stepping in, to
Okay.
use my favorite phrase.
Yeah.
Like, character wakes up, character's faced with a problem.
Mhm.
There's a series of try fail, and they come out the other side differently. Whether
Right.
it's emotionally differently or if it's more of a plot different, right? Because I think we've discussed this before. Some genres are really more character driven, some are more plot driven. One is not necessarily better than the other. It's what your reader is looking for. But all right, we've got, how many people have taken it? Can we tell? Okay, we've
Um,
got, here we go. 3.
okay.
Okay, we've got 3 people who've taken it. We'll wait for a couple more people
Okay.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm
Rob.
and there's a word for this.
Okay.
A word that I have never used in discussing story structure, but it does exist. And I've explained these concepts without ever kind of referring to it this way. But and that is Freytag's pyramid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I've just I don't use that in conversation. but I understand what it means.
You should work that into conversation more often.
Right. Right. We're going to have a family dinner next week, and I'll work that
Yeah,
into.
work that in. Work that in.
Right. So what you
Rob,
guys
tell
don't
us
understand about this rack of ribs is
Freitag's pyramid. Rob, tell us in the chat. Okay, there's more than one plot in the world. Boil it down even farther is that what you're saying? You're saying boil this down to the most basic of basics, Hank?
yes, to like there's a structure to stories. Now, how you kind of ramp up into that structure, how some of the sub parts of that may break out differently, but there are and Freytag's pyramid has 5 points. And I would argue, and I would love to be proven wrong, that most stories exist with these 5 points. And that is exposition, which is the introduction where the setting, characters, and status quo are established. It ends with the inciting incident, which kickstarts the main conflict. And then the second one is rising action, a series of events and complications that build tension and deepen the story's conflict as the stakes are raised. Perfect. Perfect.
There you go.
And then the climax, the turning point or peak of the pyramid, the protagonist's fate is sealed and the direction of the story shifts irrevocably. And then falling action, the aftermath of the climax where the consequences of the turning point unfold and tension shifts toward a final outcome. And then the resolution or catastrophe, the final outcome of the story. In tragedies, this is where the catastrophe, the hero's downfall. While in comedies or other genre, it serves as the resolution or the denouement, where loose ends are tied up. So, argue whether this exists in all good stories, or can you point to an example where this did not happen, or a story was not told in this way? And it looks like we've lost Abby. What's the chat say? Do you guys agree that most stories are told with these narrative elements? What happened to you, Abby?
It's the wrong tab.
Well, you closed the tab with the stuff on the screen. You did.
Yeah, because I shut the whole thing down. That's what I did.
So I was just asking them, like, do you agree or disagree that and I'll say it this way, the way we understand story is based on this. And because we've said it so many times that we are storytelling creatures. We grew up reading books, we grew up watching movies. And when you first start writing a book, before you learn any craft, you know the shape of a story. You can, because we've told stories to each other, we've read books, we've watched movies, we understand how you get into a story, what the story is supposed to do, how it should finish. Is that a universal, do you believe?
Okay, so sorry, I got a little distracted in the chat when I saw David said most Western stories. And I was like, yes. Oh, I didn't even think about like going and looking up a Murasaki Shokubu or something and being like, ooh, let's check that out.
Okay, for this discussion.
Okay,
we're gonna assume, because and that can be a whole other discussion, is storytelling from around the world and how culture shapes the way, how shapes how we tell stories and how we expect to take things from stories.
So, okay, and again,
fascinating discussion.
99% about what I learned from writing, I learned from Jenny Nash. I always said if I ever wrote a craft book, that was going to be the title.
What Jenny said?
99% of what I learned from Jenny. But I remember one day her saying to me, dude, if your character wakes up in the morning, makes a cup of coffee, it's the best cup of coffee they've ever made. They go outside, the sun is shining, the weather's perfect. They, get a new book in the mail. They sit down, they read a book, they have a great dinner, they have a good call with their friend, and then they go to bed. That's not a story.
Right.
It's just a bunch of stuff that's happening.
Right.
Like, you have to have a character who wakes up, who has a problem.
Right.
Something goes wrong that they have to overcome in order to get to the other side.
Yeah.
And that's how I break it down. And I mean, and it doesn't matter what genre you're writing in. If your character wakes up, has a great day, goes to bed, not a story. So that's kind of what I think about when you say, is there what's the underlying structure of a story? Like, to me, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's simplified beautifully, I think, in Freitag's Pyramid.
Yeah.
Because that's genre agnostic.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a story that doesn't somehow fit that up and down.
Yeah, and I've been racking my brain trying to find an example that doesn't follow this, and the only thing I can come up with is some weird Christopher Nolan movie, and I think even his stories, while making you feel like you're losing your mind, ultimately kind of follow.
Do you think you become the character where you lose your mind and
You
that's the story? I mean,
That's
that's
the
like the weird
story.
sort of art major stuff
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
think happens.
yeah. It's that it's not that the shape of the story is different. It's who's interacting with the story is the and that's just
All right.
yeah.
Now I have two questions in my brain.
Okay.
Is there
Lay
a
'em out.
story that doesn't fit? Is there a famous story that does? Let me just put is there a famous story that does not fit Freitag's Pyramid? That's the first one. And then second one is that a Western story thing? So I say famous again.
Yeah.
We're really just saying famous
Yep.
to Western
Famous in which
culture.
context? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So
Oh, apparently there are plenty.
Oh.
Homer's Iliad opens mid-war and ends not with the fall of Troy, but with Hector's funeral. No clean climax and resolution in Freitag's sense. Slice of Life.
Wait.
And Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. I didn't think about that. That's just stream of consciousness, where she's just walking around and you're just in her head while she thinks about stuff, and she walks around all day, sort of thing.
Okay,
right?
I'll argue Virginia Woolf popular, yes. Commercial? And I know that the popular and commercial are not necessarily the same thing.
The same thing.
And just because something is commercial doesn't mean that it's perfect. Or just because something is commercial doesn't mean it's invalid. So, like, I think a thing's popularity doesn't immediately dismiss it from being art, nor does something being weird automatically make it artsy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
I have to say,
I know I'm provoking the art major here by using terms like this. I'm doing that on purpose.
No, so when I first learned about Virginia Woolf,
Yeah.
was in Mrs. Weitch's 12th grade English class, and she and I liked decidedly different books. So she was the lady who told me you have to give a book 50 pages. And I'm pretty sure she said you have to give a book 50 pages because she made us read and present on 50 pages of the same book every 6 weeks as a grade. Right. So I feel like she was kind of working that in to her own class structure.
Oh, yeah.
But I read Sylvia Plath and she freaking hated it. And then I read Virginia Woolf, which she absolutely hated, that I stood up and talked about these two ladies. So I somehow stumbled upon Virginia Woolf when I was in what I like to call my bougie phase of reading, where I was like, I want some weird.
We've all had that phase. Let's be
woman
honest.
author that like broke the mold. Like, this is what I wanted. And so I forget which.
Some people would call that
A Room of One's Own is what I read. It was pretentious. I was totally being a pretentious pre-art major.
Yeah.
So I was just, it's just the on-ramp to being an art major is you have to be pretentious.
Sure.
So I read A Room of One's Own, and she just hated that I read, and I don't know why. So guess what she made me read as my third book to counteract my pretentiousness? She made me read Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. She told me to go read some Fanny Flagg. And I was like,
Did it
and
cure
I
you?
hate, no, I hated it. And I went back to Virginia Woolf.
That's funny. So commercial fiction didn't fix you.
Commercial fiction didn't fix me, but I've landed on commercial fiction now that I'm probably roughly the same age that Mrs. Weich was when she taught me.
Mm.
So
So is the lesson here that we're not talking to 17-year-olds?
maybe, I don't know. 17-year-olds soon to be art majors. 1001 Nights, the Canterbury Tales are collections held in a frame, not one pyramid. Oh, episodic. Are you ready for this one?
Okay.
Huck Finn and Don
Okay.
Quixote. Now, but would each of the episodic pieces of Huck Finn fit
I think so.
the pyramid?
It's been a long time since I read Huck Finn, but yeah, I mean, I think so. It feels Huck Finn feels more like an anthology that
Mm-hmm.
it's like a slices of life anthology that ultimately tell an overarching story, but it's the pieces there.
Here Elsie says
Yeah,
each episode of Huck Finn would fit. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah.
So, all
Now,
right.
all of
Well,
those or most of those that you named, um, I can think of a couple of examples that have been turned into Hollywood movies, and that is not the judge that we gauge everything by.
mm-hmm.
But it's a way to conceptualize some of this is can you distill this into a marketable storytelling? And most of that has not had the Hollywood treatment because it doesn't fit that mold.
Okay. So to throw this in, because by the way, I'm going to see a stage version of The Taming of the Shrew this weekend.
Mm,
Worth noting, Freytag derived his pyramid specifically from the 5-act classical and Shakespearean tragedy. So it was never meant as a universal template, which is why so much
interesting.
fiction sits outside it, is what I'm
Interesting.
reading on the interwebs.
Interesting.
We should carry this conversation over into the community. Rob can lead the charge since he was the first to say no.
I think so.
Let's see how many stories we can research and find that sit outside of Freytag's pyramid.
Yeah. And I have not begun filming next week's workshop yet, although I will begin in earnest on Wednesday. And some of your responses might
May
make
make
it
it.
into the workshop because I might rethink a section on this.
I think
Mm.
we really got to look up the Western thing next.
We do.
That's
We do.
because what you guys don't realize is when I taught fine arts, Japanese woodblock prints was one of my specialties. I was totally enamored with Japanese culture. I
Love it.
actually traveled to China and Japan to set up exchange programs between schools there and schools in the United States.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. International
So,
Traveler Abby.
yeah, you would think I would have read more literature, but I didn't. I was really digging the art.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's our time for today. But like Abby said, we're going to continue this over in the community. Love to hear your input and may see it on the screen.
We should have some sort of prize for like the person
We
who
should.
comes up with like the most or something. I
We
mean, I'm just
should.
talking out of my rear end. I have
We
no
should.
prizes.
We
I have
should
an
figure out
empty.
I think I've got a bag of cough drops here somewhere. Here's a half-used tube of
I have some
chapstick.
carnivorous plant food if anybody wants that. So I don't know.
I've got writing sprints tomorrow at 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern that I just remembered just now. I'll create those links in a little bit. And then Abby's got coffee hour on Wednesday. That other guy, Doug, has writing sprints on Thursday.
What's his face?
Yeah, I totally knew Doug's name. I was
He's
just
dead to me, so
yeah.
he's dead to me.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you
Bye,
around.
everybody.
Bye.